Hey guys, this is totally not Sparkman, and I'm here to bring you an Altergeist deck profile. Altergeist is a control deck, and it's one of the better decks out right now, I feel. This is actually a budget build. I find it works really well, and it can still compete with more expensive builds, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. So first we're running 3 Altergeist Malik. This is probably the second most important card in the deck. It has a 2-part effect. So one of its effects is you can attack your opponent directly, and if you succeed in that attack, you can destroy any card on your opponent's side of the field. So it's really good for clearing out pesky boss monsters or continuous spells or traps. Its second effect is also really important, where if it's destroyed by you or your opponent, you can add any Altergeist monster from your deck to your hand. So this is really important for getting Multi-Faker to your hand, which is probably the most important card. Next we run 3 Altergeist Marionetter. This card is really good and really vital to the deck because once you normal summon it, you're allowed to set any Altergeist trap from your deck to the field. This is obviously important with setting up your Multi-Faker plays. As you'll notice, I'll be saying Multi-Faker a lot, as that's the most important card in the deck, and most of the cards in the deck are just for setting that card up. You can also use it for its secondary effect, which is you can actually get an Altergeist card from your graveyard by sending one on your field to the graveyard. You can even send itself to the graveyard to get it. So it's a pretty versatile card, pretty valuable card. Next, the most important card in the deck, Altergeist Multi-Faker. So you're probably wondering, how can this card be the boss monster of the deck? It's only 1200 attack, 800 defense. But what makes this card special is that you actually are never normal summoning it, because you'll actually be special summoning it with the use of its effect, which is you set a trap card and then you activate it, and then once you activate that trap card, whether it's on your opponent's turn or your turn, you can special summon this from your hand to the field. And once you special summon it from your hand to the field, which I usually do in defense position just in case, you can special summon any Altergeist card from your deck, which will typically be Silquidus, although you can also special summon Malik. So once you have those 2 cards on the field, you can set up a whole lot of plays. So it's really vital to get as many of these on the field as possible. So I'll be talking about a couple of combos you could do with traps in the deck, but this is probably the most central card. Next we're running 3 Altergeist Silquidus. So this is the card you'll most likely be special summoning with Multi-Faker effect, because it has a really powerful effect where you can bounce any Altergeist card from your side of the field to the hand, and then send any card on your opponent's side of the field to their hand. So it's really good for popping opponents' special summoned extra deck monsters. And you can do it once per turn, so it's not like, you use it once and you can't do it again. You can do it every turn, and you can also not just send Altergeist monsters back to your hand, but you can send back your traps. So if you want to keep your monsters on the field, if you have Altergeist traps set up, you can send those back to your hand, and then send back any powerful monster that your opponent might have on their side of the field. It's really good. So this is the card you'll most likely be special summoning most of the time. Next you run 1 Altergeist Conqueror. This is probably the weakest Altergeist monster, but it actually comes in handy a lot. So what happens is, if your opponent attacks one of your Altergeist monsters, you can special summon this from your hand. It'll automatically end the battle phase. And not only that, but you can target 1 card on your opponent's side of the field, monster or spell and trap, and then you can negate that card's effect as long as this card's on the field. So it comes in clutch actually a lot of the time, but you only need 1 of it, because there aren't too many scenarios where you'd need to run more than 1. So still a really good card. It has a lot of defense as well, 2400 to be exact. Since this is a control deck, you want to run a lot of negates and a lot of hand traps. So the 3 of them that I run are obviously Effect Veiler, pretty self-explanatory, pretty vital to the deck, so I'm not going to go into that too much. And then a budget option that's actually really good that I run is 3 Skullmeister. Since there's a lot of cards in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That have effects that activate from within the graveyard, this is actually really good, as it pretty much stops that from happening. It also actually has a lot of attack points for a 4-star normal summon monster, so you can actually use it in some scenarios by just normal summoning it as well. So that's the monster lineup. So for the spells, first we'll start with the draw engine. because I didn't want to break the bank on the other popular pot cards, I run 2 Pot of Desire. So the thing is, Pot of Desire is a +2. A lot of people don't like it because you have to banish 10 cards, but the theory is that in most duels, you'll never actually see the bottom 10 cards of your deck. So if you use even 1, it's definitely a +2. So it's still really advantageous, and in a worst case scenario you can use 2, because typically you're running 3 of most of the cards in this deck, so even if you lose a few copies of the cards you'll still be fine, and the draw 2 is really powerful. So you could still win even with a 20 card deck, so I think running 2 is fine. I wouldn't run 3 though, because getting rid of 3/4 of your deck, that's probably a loss right there. And I run 1 Pot of Duality. This is the replacement for the 3rd Pot of Desires, simply because, you know, it helps you get to the cards that you need quicker. The only bad side is that you can't special summon the turn that you use it, but typically, since you summon Multi-Faker with trap cards, you wouldn't be special summoning on your own turn anyway, so it still works out pretty well. So next I'm running 2 Secret Village of Spellcasters. This card's actually really good right now because if you have a Spellcaster monster on the field, which all the Altergeist monsters are, your opponent can't activate any spell cards. So you're pretty much negating a whole lot of archetypes plays just by having this card on the field. There's a trap card that I'm going to introduce later that does the same thing but with a higher cost, but this is definitely, if you can get this on the field, it kind of wins you a lot of games, so it's pretty clutch. You don't have to run 3 though, 2 is just fine. Now for the traps, first you run 3 Personal Spoofing. Now this is, although it doesn't say it by name, it is an Altergeist archetype card. Essentially what you can do with it, it's really powerful, is once per turn you can take any Altergeist monster from your field or your hand and you can put it back in the deck and then replace it with another Altergeist monster from your deck. So it comes in handy when you're looking for like a Multi-Faker to add to your hand, or you need a Malik to pop a powerful card on your opponent's side of the field. So it's really clutch. Running 3 is pretty stable. So next you run 1 Altergeist Manifestation. It's pretty much this archetype's Monster Reborn. It literally is just a Monster Reborn. You could bring back any Altergeist monster from your graveyard, and once it leaves the field, that Altergeist monster is also gone. So, you know, pretty self-explanatory. I run 1 Metaverse. This helps you get out the Secret Village of Spellcaster, so this pretty much helps you stop your opponent from using their spells once you get out the Secret Village. Imperial Order, this is the card I was talking about earlier. It's pretty much just like Secret Village, where it stops your opponent from using any spell cards. The only problem is that you have to subtract 700 from your life points every turn, not just your turn, but your opponent's turn. Although I will say this card does win you a lot of games. Like I said, a lot of decks revolve around spell cards, so just having this card on the field, you can probably, you definitely win before you run out of life points. Next, 3 Altergeist Protocol. This is probably the most important trap in the deck. This is why a lot of people hate Altergeists. It pretty much negates anything that your opponent's throwing at you. So like, if an opponent activates an effect, you can send any of your Altergeist cards to the graveyard and negate the effect, and not only that, but it'll destroy that card. So this comes in clutch a lot. Also has another effect where your opponent can't negate any of your Altergeist effects. So if they want to stop you from special summoning, if they want to stop the banish effects, they can't do it because this card's in the field. So this is a card that you'll use a lot of times to get Multi-Faker onto the field. So very important. Next we run a lot of negates. Like I said, it's a control deck, so it's very important. So 3 Solemn Strike, pretty self-explanatory. Then 2 Solemn Judgment. Once again, you know what that does. I mean, you're going to be using these cards a lot. You don't want to hold back on using these cards, even though they do cost life points, because the whole point of the deck is negating your opponent's summons, negating your opponent's traps and spells and effects. It's pretty much to make your opponent have a bad time, so you don't have to hold back on giving away life points, because at the end of the game, you'll have most of the control and you'll probably be able to win. Next, the last 2 traps are Torrential Tribute. These cards are actually really great in this deck, I feel like, especially since, you know, a lot of decks focusing on special summoning so many cards. This is a great board clearer, and also there's a great combo you can do with Multi-Faker, where if your opponent special summons a whole board of crazy monsters, you know, you activate Torrential Tribute, get rid of the whole board, and then you could special summon Multi-Faker after that's done, and then you could use Multi-Faker effect, special summon another Altergeist monster, and then boom, you have a +2 advantage in the monster zone compared to your opponent who has now 0 monsters. So this card comes in clutch a lot, especially against decks that, you know, have a whole big board of monsters. As for the extra deck, so Altergeist, you don't actually use many extra deck monsters. There's really only like 4 primary ones, I feel like. So the main one that you'll be trying to get out a lot is Hextia. So Hextia, it's not like your typical boss monster. It has a pretty low attack, but what's cool about it is that you can boost it pretty much. So you put it to the field and it has an arrow pointing downwards, so any Altergeist card that's below it, it boosts this card's attack by the amount of attack of that Altergeist card, so you can get it to a pretty high attack. It also has a pretty solid effect, just like Altergeist Protocol, where if an opponent activates an effect, you can get rid of one of your Altergeist cards and negate that effect. So it's a pretty strong card. You'll try to bring this out most of the time, but it's pretty much the main one you'll bring out. The only other one that I regularly bring out is a Link Karibo. You could run 3 of these. You could also run Salamangreat Almirage as well. They pretty much do the same thing. You're really only using this by tributing Altergeist Malik to activate its effect. Other than that, it's not really that important. Besides that, there is another Altergeist Link monster, Prime Banshee. You don't really bring this one out that much because it's kind of a worse version of Hextia. Like, there really isn't much reason to bring it out. It is just there just in case. You never know. I've brought it out a couple of times, kind of just to style on opponents if I'm already winning. And other than that, I do run a couple of staples, but you never really use them, but they're there just in case. You know, obviously if there's a card you want to pop, Cerberus, or, you know, Speller Trap, Phoenix. So other than that, I mean, you can just kind of plug and play there's a lot of other Link monsters or extra deck monsters that could work, but you typically won't be bringing them out. So that concludes the deck. I hope you guys like it. It's a fun deck. It's really frustrating for your opponents. You could definitely win tournaments with it. It doesn't have a traditional high attack boss monster, but I think that's what's cool about it. So, you know, I'm not Sparkman, but keep watching Sparkman's videos, and peace out.